Hey guys, it's Ty and welcome back to my channel. So today I am doing something that I'm really excited to do, and that is a author highlight. So I have done two of these previously. So I have done one for S.A. Cosby where I went through and ranked all of his books, even though that one was a little different because I actually really enjoy all of his books. So it kind of went from like least favorite to most favorite. So I did that. And then I also did one of these for Riley Sager where I also read all of his books and did a ranking for those. So I will have those videos linked down below in case you guys want to check those out. But today we are going to be focused on Shari Lapena. So I actually discovered her books maybe like 2 years ago at this point, and I have just fallen in love with the type of books that she writes. So she does primarily domestic thrillers, and she does have two other books published, but in full transparency, I was not really interested in those, so I'm not including them here. But all of the books that I'm going to be talking about here are strictly her domestic thrillers, and I have quite a few to go over. So what really draws me into her stories is that you are dropped into the story from like page one. There's not really a lot of build up to get to like the mystery part of it. It takes off from literally page one, chapter one. You are thrown into like this mystery. Her books usually include like a large cast of characters. They are usually set in like a neighborhood with the exception of one of them so far. And then there are a ton of characters. There are lots of secrets. There's lots of drama. There's just lots of mess. And I truly enjoy that. So I have really been enjoying her books. So instead of ranking them, because a majority of them I've given 4 stars, one of them has gotten 3 stars, and then one of them, the most recent one that I've read, that one has gotten 5 stars from me. So instead of ranking them, I'm just gonna go in the order that I actually read them. So we're gonna go ahead and get started. So the book that got me hooked on this author is Not a Happy Family. If you guys have been around on this channel, you know I absolutely adored this story. This is one of the ones that I gave 4 stars, and I was hooked from like page one when I read this story. So in this, we are following a group of siblings after the death, murder of their parents. And I think this took place like their parents died or they were found dead like Thanksgiving, or not Thanksgiving, but Easter, the night of Easter, and it was after they all had this big family dinner. And so of course the siblings are being looked into by the police because they are now set to receive like this really big inheritance, and the police thinks one of these siblings is actually the murderer. And so we're just following these siblings as they are trying to prove to the police that they did not do it. I really like this one because this one, to me, doesn't have as many characters as her other books. There are still a lot of characters, but just not as many. And I really liked learning about these siblings. They all have their own reasons on why they would have killed their parents, and you're just trying to figure out which one actually did it. However, I do think that this was a little bit predictable, but one of the things that I really like about her stories is that because there are so many characters, even though you might think you know what is going on, at a certain point, you will start to question it and not be so sure. And that is what happened in this one. I do wish there was a little bit of a different ending to this, but overall, of course, I really enjoyed it. One of the things that will always stick with me with this book in particular is that dinner scene. Let me tell you guys about this scene. So all of the siblings, it's 3 of them, and their partners go over to their parents' house for dinner, and their father is not the most likable person. And while they're sitting down at this dinner, that father goes through each of his kids and tells them why he does not like them. And it just blew me away because I was like, why is he doing that? Like, that's his kids. And then why are they sitting there listening to it? So that happened within like the first couple of chapters. And from there, I was like hooked. I knew that this was going to get crazier the more I read. And in fact, it did. And so this was the start of my Shari Lapena journey, and I have not turned back. And this is one that I would definitely highly recommend. So then the next one that I read from this author is An Unwanted Guest. So So this is the one where I said it takes place in like a different setting, not necessarily in a neighborhood, but this one takes place at a retreat in the Catskills, I think. Yes, in the Catskills. And different guests are arriving for this retreat. And of course, there's like a snowstorm that keeps everybody there for the weekend. One day, someone ends up dead, and then chaos ensues from there. I really enjoyed this one because I liked the setting of it. I love any type of setting where it's like really secluded, they're stuck in this inn, and then it feels like people are like being picked off one by one. If you guys remember the video that I did a few weeks ago, I actually included this in a video where I talked about books that included that trope of people getting picked off one by one. I think this is a great one for that. And like I said, is a reason why I really enjoyed this one. I also enjoyed learning about some of the guests that were at this inn. So some of them are couples, some of them are friends. We're also following some people that actually work at the inn. And we start to learn, of course, some of their secrets. When people start to turn up dead, there's like this implication that their partner may or may not have done it because of the secrets that they're holding. At a certain point, obviously, people start turning on each other. And so this was a really fun time. It's almost winter now, so if you're looking for a nice wintry read, this is a book that I would definitely recommend for that. So then next I have Everyone Here is Lying. And so now we're getting back to the stories that are taking place in like these specific neighborhoods. And this is one of the stories that I read this year. So all of the rest of the books that I'm going to talk about, I actually read this year. So I completely like binged the rest of her book. So in this one, we are following this father. And within like chapter 1, you find out that he has been having an affair. And the person that he is having an affair with decides that she can no longer do it. Finally, her conscience is like getting to her and she ends it. And he is very, very upset. So he goes back home and his daughter Avery is there, and he kind of takes his frustrations out on his daughter and he hits her. And so later on that day, he finds out that his daughter is missing, and he is trying to take the heat off himself because he thinks he might have something to do with that, not really sure. And so the whole story is obviously everybody looking for where Avery went, but also this father trying to like cover his tracks to not let it be known that he was the last person that saw Avery. This one was a wild ride. There are a lot of unlikable characters in this one, including our main character, the father. Avery has some things going on. There's a lot of twists in this neighborhood. A lot of these characters, again, there's a lot of characters. A lot of these characters are like interconnected, and they all kind of have something to do with like this family. And so again, another one that is very entertaining. All of the drama starts from page 1 and you are easily sucked in. This actually kind of feels like a good book that I would recommend if you are looking for like a nice summer mystery thriller. This is one that I would recommend. The next one that I have here, and this is her newest release for this year, it is What Have You Done? Now, this is one that I have seen pretty mixed reviews on, but again, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I don't think I've been telling you guys my ratings for these, but all of them thus far, including this one, have been 4 stars. So in this, it starts off with us following this farmer. And he is out in his fields and he comes across this dead body and he notices that it is a young teenage girl. And so the police are called in, and so we are trying to figure out who killed this girl. And so throughout the story, again, it is a lot of characters. We are starting to kind of figure out how all of these characters we are introduced to are tied to this dead girl. And I really felt bad for this character because so many people in her life just have done her wrong. And so in this one particular, you are really questioning all of these characters and their motives for possibly wanting to hurt her. However, there were a couple of things that I did not like. So this one has like a paranormal some paranormal bits. And I don't necessarily think it was needed in this story, especially because we didn't get a lot of it. So if it would have leaned a little bit more into that, that would have been fine. But it was literally very sparsely told to us. And then there was like this ghost story that was like included in here as well. And I was like, we don't really need the ghost story. And I've mentioned this before with her books. I do think that it is kind of predictable in terms of what is going on. But with this one specifically, there is an element in here that I think is a dead giveaway into who is behind everything that is going on. However, and despite all of that, I still really enjoyed it because even though I figured out what was going on pretty early, I still had a fun time, and I still had those moments where I was actually questioning whether or not I was correct in my logic. So this is one that I think I would like hesitantly recommend because I can honestly agree with all of the criticisms out there, but for me that in no way took away from my enjoyment for this story. The next one I have here is The Couple Next Door. This is also one of the ones, I read this year. I actually read this a few months ago. And so this one follows this couple, and they were at a dinner party at their neighbor's house. And so they also have a young child, like a baby. And so they left the baby at home, but they decided to just kind of like go and check on the baby like every hour to make sure everything was fine, make sure the baby was doing good, make sure the baby was there. And so towards the end of the night, I can't remember which parent, but one of the parents goes over to the house to check and notices that the baby is no longer there. Surprise. So throughout this whole book, we are trying to figure out what exactly happened to this baby. Now, this one is also still set in a neighborhood, but there aren't as many characters, still a lot, but there aren't as many characters. And it is revealed to us pretty early what happened to their baby, but there are still some reveals and some things that go along with what you find out. So it's not, I just don't want anybody to go into reading this and get halfway there and be like, oh, that was it. No, that's not it. Some other stuff is happening. And I really like this one. I kind of found myself laughing at this one a lot because one of the characters in here is just hilarious to me, and like the decisions that they made absolutely no sense, and it was just kind of comical. And then there is a condition that one of the parents has that throws in like another element to this story. So even though it is kind of predictable, it was still very entertaining. So then next up, we have A Stranger in the House. So this is the only book that I have read by Shari Lapena that I have rated 3 stars. So in this one, when it first starts off, we learn that there is a dead body in a restaurant. Not far from that restaurant, the wife in this story, she is involved in like a single car accident. And so the police believe because she was in that accident and because that accident took place not that far away from that restaurant, that she has something to do with that murder. And so we are following the police in this story as they are trying to figure out if she has any connections to that murder. While all that is going on, there's also a lot of secrets with her and the husband in regards to this murder. So the reason why I rated this one 3 stars, I still enjoyed it. It was still, fast paced. I was still engaged in the story. It just ultimately did not leave a lasting impression like her other books. Like for this one, you can really figure out what's going on pretty early on. And then a lot of the twists in this one just weren't as shocking, I would say. And it's just not a story that I'm gonna think about. I also just did not think that the main character, I think her name was Karen. I did not think Karen was very likable in this story, so it was hard for me to really be invested in like these stories that she was telling. So yeah, not my favorite from Shari Lapena. However, a lot of other people really like this one. So take that with a grain of salt. Not my favorite, but still enjoyed it. Next up we have, so going back to my 4 stars, I gave this one 4 stars. This is The End of Her. This was definitely entertaining for me. This definitely had a lot of mess, the type of mess that I enjoy. So we're following this married couple again, and they are struggling with like their new twins. They're like real colicky, and the wife especially is struggling because she's a stay-at-home mom at the moment, and she has not been getting a lot of sleep. So she is half delirious most of the time. There's this girl, her name is Erica, from the husband's past, and she pops back up, and she knows the husband from their past because the husband used to be married to her best friend, but that best friend ended up dying. And so Erica is trying to blackmail him to give her some money. And she's telling him that, like, if you don't give me this amount of money, then I'm going to tell everybody that you actually killed her. And so the story kind of like takes off from there. Erica is not a likable character, but I was very entertained with her because she has caused so much trouble in not only their lives, but other people's lives that is like entangled in this mess. I really liked the ending of this. It kind of left off on like a cliffhanger, and you can just make all sorts of wild assumptions into what actually happened. But I would say this is probably also up there with one of my favorites. Again, there were just some predictable moments in here, but nonetheless, I was thoroughly entertained, especially with that character, Erica. The last book that I have from Shari Lapena that I actually just finished like a couple of days ago, and this is my only 5-star read from her, is Someone We Know. So in this one, we're following a lot of different characters, okay? So again, we're set in a neighborhood. All of these neighbors are literally like next door neighbors. And so what happens is this particular family, their son likes to go around and break into people's houses and like break into like their computers. And he does it because he likes to. And he just likes to see, I guess, whether or not he can actually get into people's computer systems. Sometimes he will pretend to like send messages and stuff from their computers, but that's literally all he does. He doesn't steal anything. He just likes to go and break into people's computer systems. However, one of the houses that he breaks into, we come to find out that the person who lives in that house, this man, his wife has gone missing. And then like chaos ensues. All of these characters are like tied into each other for one reason or another. We find out some stuff about this missing woman. We find out that she is probably not the best person. We find out that her husband isn't the best person. But what made me give this one 5 stars is because I did not see the final twist coming at all. There were some reveals along the way, but there was just like this one twist where honestly my mouth was hanging open because I had my mind made up that I knew what was going on, and nobody could have told me any different. I was like, no, this is what's going on. And then it was something completely different. Now in hindsight, I'm like, maybe I could have probably figured that out, but I literally did not figure that out in the moment, and I enjoyed it. That is how you get 5 stars out of me, is if I am completely thrown off by like the last twist. And that is what happened in this one. And this is, of course, my favorite one by Shari Lapena. So those are all of the books that I have read by her. She is definitely an auto-buy author for me. I would honestly say that she, at this point, is one of my favorite authors. I am definitely excited and waiting for her next release, which I can't remember if anything has been announced for her for next year, but I'm pretty sure there will be, because she's one of the authors that has something being released every year, and whatever it is about, I plan on picking it up. So again, I will link my other author highlights down below in case you guys are interested. And please let me know down in the comments if you have read any of her books. What have you enjoyed from her? And have I convinced you to pick up any of her books if you have not already? But that is all that I have for you guys, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.